Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Awake in the World. It is June 1st in the year 2021, if you count time the way we do. 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we are live right now, manifesting change with a tired tiger. So, hi, everyone. How are you this evening? Um, I'm a little bit low energy right now. My day started at 5 a.m. this morning. Um, we were out of the house here at 6:30 and on the water at 7 a.m. We kayaked, I don't know, 8, 10 kilometers, walked another 4 or 5 kilometers, picked up about 100 pounds of rock to bring back and a bunch of driftwood. And it's currently 33 degrees right now outside. So it's way too hot to do anything out there. And believe it or not, I spent part of my afternoon doing some more staining and woodwork outside. Thankfully, it was in the shade. It was still difficult to deal with. When it gets this hot, you have to make sure you're taking in lots and lots and lots of water. It's very important. On a day like this, for me, my minimum is about 4 liters. At a minimum, I'm drinking 4 liters of water. And there's a lot of activity going on in my life. I like to keep mobile. I find I don't stiffen up as much. A rolling stone gathers no um, creaks. And I still creak and crack and groan, just a lot less than I would if I didn't do anything at all. So, as always, put up with me because I'm a little dehydrated still, and I just realized a cup of coffee at this point now would be acceptable. So, I'm trying to wake myself back up a little bit. And as always, let me express my love for each and every one of you. No matter what is going on right now, you are exactly where you need to be. This is exactly who you need to be. There's nothing wrong with you. Every moment, every experience is all there to lovingly show you exactly what you truly are and how powerful you truly are as well. There's just something I want to talk about here for a moment, and that is the recent revelation of the 215 children at the residential school grounds in Kamloops. Um, it's not 215. It's realistically about 6,100. And that the idea that there are members of our community who have no clue of what actually happened. And part of the thing we're talking about is change, and this is going to seem uh to make no sense at all, and it won't at first, but bear with me, okay? But at the end of the day, nothing changes. Ha. And yet everything changes. So what do I mean by that cryptic sort of contradictory little sentence? Because I'm sure you've heard it before. And that is really, it's the same as the more things change, the more they stay the same. What we're often doing is not manifesting the change. We're caught back in the thought phase of manifestation, or we're caught in the blabbering, the speaking phase of manifestation. And, when it comes to what's going on with the First Nations, and it's not just the First Nations, it's every single human being that is made to feel less than in some way. That includes those that we would call our homeless. And I got to tell you, I hate that term. They are our brothers and sisters who are experiencing homelessness. But they're human beings. They're our brothers and sisters. their fellow children of creation, as all those children were and still are, and as all are we. The type of change we've been manifesting in society has not been the change of true alignment in order to create and manifest the change you want to see. And when you're not in alignment, when the thoughts, words, and deeds are not lining up, you get dysfunctional manifestations. It's really that simple. You could literally write it as a formula. Everything has to be in alignment. And in our society, of course, we're not. So the government talks one thing out of the left side of its mouth as it speaks something out of the right side and does something else out of the back end. It was nearly 10 years ago, a decade ago, that it came to light, finally, that there were a huge proportion of First Nations reserves across this country that don't have access to clean water. You know, here we are that decade later, and there are still an unbelievable amount of people living on reserves without access to clean water. That's just clean water. Something the privileged take for granted. You know, I try to remind myself every time I go to that tap, every time I utilize any of the comforts that so many are denied, how grateful I am. And to remind myself how important it is to raise awareness that we should not be living this way. You know, it's a symptom of a larger issue that we face. And you know, since we're down this path, we're going to take this path a little bit further, okay? So what the government has done is they've simply remodeled those residential schools on a more hidden structural level. They've tied it into foster care. And they've tied it into the social welfare programs and the way they're administered and the way they're funded. You know, any time there's progress made, then that rug is pulled out from underneath. That's the kind of change that's created in our own lives when our thoughts, words, and deeds are not lining up. And we're seeing that in our society, whereas the societal whole, you know, we like to wear shirts that say all children matter. If it's true, why in the name of God are there 1.3 million children living in poverty in this country alone right now? Why are 4 out of every 10 living First Nations children experiencing poverty and hunger and a lack of care right now? We find it very easy just to speak, but that's only one part of manifesting change. And it doesn't matter whether you're manifesting change in your life or manifesting change as a societal whole. The thoughts, words, and deeds must be in alignment. So let's maybe come off of this now and get into manifesting change within your life. And the reason why a lot of times we view that change as dysfunctional. Now, the gift of creation is that no matter how badly you think you're messing it up, it is always made right. It is woven, perfectly integrated seamlessly into that mystical grand web of life. But if you want to manifest change in your life, there's a few things you have to accept. And then we're going to talk about how that happens. So the first thing you have to accept is that, boy, am I ever red. Sorry, I just looked in the monitor and realized, wow, I did get a lot of extra sun today. I didn't try to, but it just happened. But okay, so anyways, back to this. So the first thing that you need to do if you want to manifest change, and this is necessary at a societal level and it's necessary at a personal level, and that is to accept where you are right now. And this is really difficult for people. I mean, our society doesn't want to accept where it is right now when it comes to what's going on with anyone who's disenfranchised. And you know what? We have to back out of that for a second because this is a very salient point that I want to bring home. You know, pandemics have it head over, like, honestly, we've got almost no chance against a pandemic. And one of the biggest reasons why we don't is a lack of willingness to accept our wholeness and oneness as one community on this planet. And no, I'm not talking about some New World Order BS. That's going to come whether we like it or not. Get used to it. What I'm talking about is the realization that every single human being on this planet is valuable and has something to offer just by virtue of being born here. You know, there was an interesting talk at the United Nations today, and it was addressed by a number of experts from various scientific fields and political arenas from across the globe. And one of the things that a pandemic does is expose our weaknesses. Our weaknesses in the way we treat the least of us. In our willingness to only care for ourselves and let another country suffer. As more of those children we say matter, every child, are dying. 40,000 people dying of starvation every day. Vast majority of those are children. We have to start looking at ourselves, and this doesn't matter at this point whether it's a society or an individual. You want to manifest change, you have to look at yourself. You have to take responsibility for every single aspect of your existence. Now, what I'm talking about is the responsibility of how you choose to view and interpret it. Because, of course, that guided your responses. It's not about beating yourself up for so-called past mistakes. There are none. There simply aren't any. The concept of good and bad in complete honesty are just that, concepts. They are liquid and fluid and morph and change, perfect and grow and evolve, just like everything else. What appears to be good today, cutting down massive amounts of trees, you know, strip mining, we thought that was great at one time. What a wonderful way to get things. We know now it's not so great. When we're talking about equality in all aspects of being, we're talking about equality of opportunity, having every human being on this planet in a place where they have good nutrition, access to free education so they could live out their dream. And allowing people to live their dream is what makes our race and being here such a unique physical journey from the other side of things. There's many other places to come, but this is the one place where the whole gamut of expression is the largest. So when we want to manifest change in our lives, we first have to accept our own power back. And that's how you accept your power back. You take responsibility for every single thing that you ever thought or chose to view in your existence. Your willingness to look at it honestly and remind yourself that it's not reality, but only your point of view. And if you're willing to look at yourself closely, you're going to find that the biggest problem in your life hasn't been life, it's been your point of view. So if you really want to manifest change, you have to start letting go of that point of view. Start widening that point of view. Now, when I say manifest change, I'm not talking about manifesting a new car. Don't even get me started on the ridiculousness of such a concept. Who would want to do that to themselves to start with? What I'm talking about is making change in your own existence. And there's only one reason to change, because you're sick and tired of living the way you are right now. And if you're not sick and tired yet, that's okay. We only suffer until we no longer need to suffer. The more resistance we put up to change, the more we stand in the way of life. And standing in the way of life is like standing in front of a 100-foot wave and saying, no, you can't go here. It's not going to end well for one of you, and it's not the wave. By the way, in case anyone's interested, Kelly isn't sleeping or not commenting. She's simply not here. She went to look after one of her grandchildren for a while this evening. And since that makes her ecstatically happy, I just shoot her right out the door. So when we accept everything that's occurred, when we accept where we are right now, when we're willing to look beyond our opinion of it, to open up our point of view and see what the gift we're being offered is, in that momentary looking backward into your filing cabinet and rifling through it, you will begin to see the patterns. The patterns that you're still suffering from right now. Because the baseball bat hasn't knocked you on the head hard enough. And we could have just as easily called this video ducking the baseball bat. Because this is about anticipating the necessary change you're going to be forced to make one time at one point or another, or maybe you'll die. Who knows? We're all doomed anyway, right? Doomed. You have that opportunity to hear that bat whistling way off in the distance before it's even, at the earliest part of its arc. It's not even near your head yet. And you can manifest a change yourself. And the signs are only being blocked by that same point of view again. The same point of view that says somehow this is life's fault, or Frank's fault, or George's fault, or Linda who left me's fault, or, the corporation I work for that fired me. It's nobody's fault. It's your responsibility what you're going to do with it, though. And this is where manifesting change becomes, you're doing it all the time anyways, but possible with a degree of conscious creativity alongside of it. Thought, word, and deed. That's as simple as it gets for manifestation, okay? Thought, word, and deed. When I say thought, what I'm talking about is if you wish to manifest a healthier version of yourself, and you are suffering from a little bit of depression or a little bit of feeling of a lack of self-worth, and perhaps your nemesis lays in the refrigerator or in the pantry cupboard. If your thoughts are always that you're not worthwhile, that you're, if they're always negative, if there are always thoughts that are causing you to feel bad, which of course is a reminder to you from your own body's intelligence that your thoughts are messed up. So if you're having all those thoughts and you're always reaching for that food, the first thing you need to affect are your thoughts. Which means examining those thoughts that your body is alerting you to that don't feel good. Looking at the underlying thoughts based on your perceptions, your opinion of things that have happened to you in the past. Now, this is going to sound way off the wall, but you know what? It's not. You're already doing this already. You're just doing it totally unconsciously. And I'm saying, why not do it consciously? So I'm going to give you an example. When I was 10 years old, it was a Sunday morning, and church was what we did on Sunday. I hadn't seen my dad in 4 years. He had left when I was 6. I believe there was one brief visit around 7. So a good 3.5 years, perhaps. And a knock came at the door, and there were 2 policemen standing there. And my mom asked me to go upstairs, but back in those days, the 60s, well, that was actually 1970, it would have been right on the nose. The open railing staircases leading down from the second floor right into the living room and by the front door. A lot of people may remember those if you lived in the 70s house. And I listened as these 2 police told my mother that my father was dead. And I did not know what to think about that. I didn't really have any thoughts about it at all. As a matter of fact, when they left, my mom called me down with my sister. She told us what had happened, and I asked her if we had to go to church. She said no. So I went outside and played. I can't say I really thought about it until I was 18 years old, dating a girl over in Europe, and I was invited to her uncle's funeral. And when the casket was being lowered into the ground, everything about my father popped right back in. And now I was bawling alongside of her because she really did love her uncle. My point of view was totally understanding towards the Garen who simply couldn't process what had happened at the time. And that was fortunate for me. But if I had chosen to take on a point of view that was really negative and filled with guilt and filled with grief and with the idea that Garen didn't have a dad and maybe in some way perhaps it was my fault, I wasn't a good enough child, whatever the case may be, only I would suffer all those years of dysfunctional thinking based on my point of view. So you may sit here and think that something that happened to you 5 years ago was entirely someone else's responsibility and that there was no part in it that you had to play, no role. And maybe you blame them for your perception of them stealing or taking something from you. In reality, you've thrown whatever that is yourself. You're the one who's thrown it away through your choices and the way you choose to perceive things. So if we take one of those negative events and we simply change our perceptions and allow ourselves to relive the experience from that higher perceptual state, from a more open perceptual state, and we can see the lesson in it, we see the harsh teacher perhaps, but we understand that they were a harsh teacher, not an enemy. We're able to let go of it because we know it wasn't personal. If we would have taken us out of the picture and put anyone else back in there, the same thing would have happened. So knowing that, we begin to make change and manifest change first and foremost by gearing our point of view towards the change we want to manifest. So if the change has to do with your weight and your state of health, you have to first change the way you think about yourself, which means understanding that the vessel that you're occupying may not feel so good right now, but you are still that perfect spiritual being, that manifestation of God, a child of creation. And you have all that power within you still. And you are loved. And you are cared for. And when you make that your predominant thought process in every avenue of your life, change will begin all by itself. The wheels of change are already starting to speed up. Except now you're going to perceive them from a new point of view. You're not going to resist or judge the change that comes. Manifesting change isn't really about deciding what you want to be and then becoming that, although that's totally possible, but you're never going to be exactly what you decide you're going to be. You are the sum of your experiences. And Kelly and I were talking about this today. And I had, there was a post, and the post said, if you could go back to when you were 18 and say 3 words to yourself, what would you say? And I realized in that moment of seeing that post that, in all honesty, despite my funny little comment, I think it was run right now, I wouldn't change a thing. Because in the moment that I change one aspect of all of the things that occurred, I might lose all of this right here, right now. Because all of this right here, right now, everything that you are and have and are experiencing right now is the sum of all of that. I might not be here with Kelly if I were to change and say those 3 words to myself in my distant past. So what would I change about my past? Not a thing. The second part of manifesting is, of course, our words. Making sure that our speech is supportive of what we're thinking about and that they're in alignment. So here's the big one. A lot of people, they're embarrassed about what they're thinking about. They're embarrassed about their ideas. They're embarrassed about the concept that they could become something more. Why? Because they've been programmed into believing that. So when the opportunity comes, they speak words that are actually contrary to what they're thinking. As soon as we go askew like that, the manifestations begin to queer. They begin to go awry. This is a natural effect. And it happens to let you know that there's something out of alignment with yourself. That your thoughts and words are not yet all running in the same direction. Forgive me for one moment. The crinkling in the background is Kelly trying to get chocolate out from a chocolate bar without me knowing. But of course, with super hearing, I hear everything. The words we speak must be a reflection of our thoughts, which means having integrity with ourselves. Being willing to be fully honest with ourselves and then extending that honesty outwards to others. Being willing to stand there and say, as nicely as possible, exactly what you're honestly thinking. And now, of course, we're speaking about everything, but now we're talking about manifesting change. So thoughts and words flowing in the same direction. Now comes the interesting part. The deeds, the activity. You see, all the activity that you've ever taken part in, including myself going kayaking this morning, was actually God. God performs all tasks. For that divine creator is all things, you included. Everything included. We are simply along for the ride as an egoic sense of self. And what we really do is create commentary on what we're doing. Oh man, is it hard to paddle in this heat? Oh, why won't the boat stay straight? The rocks are imbalanced. The body's doing its thing. The mind isn't really in control. It just thinks it's in control. So when it comes to action, There's no really grand action you need to take. The actions are an expression of that arrow that you're shooting into the pregnant womb of creation, and you're co-creating something right alongside that creator. You're co-creating it. And we don't love our creations a lot of times. And that doesn't mean you have to love the person who tried to take your life. But one day, you're going to have to understand enough that you're able to love them. Maybe not in this life, that's okay. When I say actions that are in alignment with our thoughts, words, and then our deeds, right? Our actions. I'm talking about deeds that reflect the new pointed direction that you want to go in. So, for example, if you decide all of a sudden you want to be a child psychologist, and you've been thinking about that for a while, and now you're talking to all your friends about it, what are some of the actions that you would normally be taking? Well, for one, you could do some real research to find out if you actually know exactly what a child psychologist endures and make 100% sure that that's something that you want to do. That would be an action going towards it. The other types of deeds or actions are responsive to the signs that life gives us. I know that change is inevitable, that change is synonymous with life. But there isn't really an aspect of my life that I look at and say, I need to change it. I instead look at it and say, it will change when I have made the change within me. So often we look upon our outside circumstances and we want them to change. We want to be in a different situation. We want to be in a new home. We want to be in a new job. We want to be in a new relationship. We want to be a new self, a new being. We want new opportunities, whatever the case may be, a new cat, doesn't matter. None of that actually occurs until that thought, word, and deed is fulfilled and the necessary changes are made within the core of your being. The reason it appears sometimes that things aren't changing is because we're being stubborn. And life, very lovingly, just like keeping a kid at the table to eat the veggies, right? Ever gone through that? I did. Man, peas. I hated those little things when I was young. And peas were cheap. So, single mother on disability with a lot of issues. We ate peas. I tended to sit at the table for hours sometimes. Change begins and ends inside of you. The external world is a reflection of that inner state of being. And when you let go of the idea of manifesting stuff and objects and instead focus on manifesting change within your being, the outside takes care of itself. The physical world has always been a reflection of our own inner states. It doesn't really require us to get out there and muck about too much. Changing your own inner state of being will naturally bring about right words, right thoughts, right deeds. And you will come to understand that those tasks that you end up performing as part of those deeds, part of that arrow of creation, aren't really tasks at all. They're part of the creative process. And you are only one half of that equation. God itself, that divine creator, creates right alongside of you, saying, as you wish, to your every dream. careful what you wish for. That's it. That's all. I hope that was helpful. Um, I am a little worn out, and when I get worn out, I get a little bit growly. So I apologize if I, stomped on anything a little too hard this evening. I do think it's really important, though, that we understand at a societal level that it's way past the time to be, talking anymore. We have to get a unified realization that no human being should ever be treated in such a fashion. That there is never, the last thing I would want to be is someone standing over another person after abusing them and have them look up to me and for me to realize that it was actually God or Jesus or Buddha or Muhammad that I was abusing. We need to make that change, and that change is within. The ability to see everyone as they truly are, as a part of ourselves. That's it, that's all. Much love, namaste. Have a beautiful, hot, steamy night. And we'll speak again very soon.